going to be sleeping in at night, right? So you're going to be in your tent, you're going to have your sleep system, and like Mr. Warren said, you don't want to get snow inside because it's going to go straight to the lowest point, which is where you're going to be sleeping at. So my sleep system is probably relatively overkill compared to Mr. Warren's, but that's because I like to cheat and not really build anything resembling a shelter. So I've got 3 sleeping bags, and I've got a big down blanket in here. This I stuff down towards my feet because I'm usually only wearing a pair of socks, and my feet get cold at night. I don't know about you, but my feet get cold at night. So I stuff a little bit extra down there to make sure my feet don't get cold. Right? The innermost bag is just a small little 45-degree bag. This is my summer bag that I go into summer camp with every year. And then on top of that, I've got a 20-degree bag. And then I've got another 20-degree bag. And I've had this down to, I believe, probably right around 0 degrees, and I was warm. So this is something that works for me. Everybody's different in the way their sleep system works. Some people like something a little bit lighter, some people like it heavier. It all depends on what you like and how you like to sleep at night. So it all depends. These are all good sleeping bags for cold weather camping. You can usually run the light sleeping bag in one of these just fine. It'll be fine. But it all depends on the situation, what you're camping. And I like to have a little bit extra on the outside in case one gets wet. I've still got something on the inside that's dry and keeps me dry. Mr. Warren?
Okay. This is another instance where layers come into being. Nobody freezes from the top down, you freeze from the bottom up, because you're going to be sleeping on frozen ground, let's say, and you're no ways going to be able to get enough heat to melt the ground that you're sleeping on. If you want to think about it, here's your sponge. This sponge can simulate your layers in your sleeping bag. So when you lay on top, you're going to squash that down so that what it's on the top looks nice and fluffy is down to about nothing. So you need layers underneath you so that you can keep yourself off of the frozen ground. As Mr. Fitterer said, you're going to sweat, and you're going to sweat during the night too. And the problem with sweat, or you're going to heat up some stuff, but the problem is that you're going to wind up having this perspiration. You give off about a pint overnight in just the steam that you breathe. When you're out there, you got all this steam coming out of your mouth when you breathe in and out. Well, that happens all over your body, not the steam, but certainly that's what keeps your skin soft and supple. If you've ever had a piece of skin that peeled off, it dries out to kind of a crunchy type of thing. So moisture is constantly seeping out of your body to keep your skin nice and moist. What that does is that acts like a cold drink on a summer day in that it condenses in here. And I wound up waking up the first time I did this, and I was sleeping on just a regular old mattress, and it compressed too, and I wound up with an outline of my body on the inside of my sleeping bag. So I said, well, what was that? I didn't get wet. There's nothing I spilled or anything, but it was the condensation from underneath it. So what you want to do is you want to have several layers on the bottom. And if you don't have a closed cell sleeping pad, then what you need to do is save up a couple of weeks of Sunday papers, because each layer in between the papers is air, and then you get the thickness of the paper, and between, maybe 20 or 30 layers, it's going to be pretty toasty, and it won't make any difference as far as how cold it is below, because it's going to be just fine. And I've done that before too. When you come into your tent, you're going to want to have something like this. Everybody goes through one of these every year. Okay, it's normally got a little thing there to goose off the chip ice on your windshield, but when you've got it all tired out and everything, it doesn't really work. So what you can do is you take it and then you can brush yourself all over, and you can brush your camping buddy so that nobody brings stuff into their, yeah, you can brush your teeth with it and comb your hair. Yeah, that's true. First, you have to have hair, Joe. You got to have hair.
I do.
But you can dust off your boots. You can dust off your pants. You don't have to bend over because all these layers, you can only get down about so far. So, cheap. Then, I wind up just using my summer sleeping bag. Cotton. It's weighted for about, I don't know, 40 degrees, whatever a Walmart grade type of thing is. Doesn't even have to be in good condition. So, and then on the inside, I've got my backpacking summer bag, which is the Mummy, and I just take that and I stuff that inside. And then I need to get undressed. So what I like to do then is I like to get a square of fleece, not down, just fleece. Doesn't absorb water, but what it does do is you cut a little hole in there, and look, all I did was cut it. It doesn't unravel, so there's no loose threads and no nothing. And then what I do is I take this and I stuff this over my head, and then I can sprinkle this all around me, and then I can sit down on the ground on my sleeping bag. I can dance this all around, and I'm just as warm as I was if I was at home. It doesn't leak out, and you can take off clothes and all down to past your underwear, and then you can put on whatever it is that you're going to wear at night, which is layers or not, depending on what you want to do. And then the best part about this is this keeps you warm anyway. So what you do is you've got your hat on and you've got all your day clothes in the bag that this came from. So here's your pillow. You leave your coat out. Now, while you're sleeping, you take off your underwear if you want, or your socks if you want, and you put them underneath your sleeping bag, where you've got your insulation pad, and you've got the socks and whatever it is that you want to dry out, and then you lay that on top, and then you sleep on it. Again, your body heat will evaporate that and float it out, and then it'll be pretty much dry by the next time you wake up. So that's one way that you can stretch socks if you happen to get them wet. Because you never wear the same stuff. So, you're in bed, and you got your hat on, then you take your fleece, and you drape that over the top of you, and then you pull it over your head, so that then you're sleeping under here and you're breathing, and not only does it keep the wind from blowing, because if you're in a mummy bag, your face is sticking out, and if it's 0 degrees out, your face is stuck in this 0 degree. So under here, it's whatever your head is, and half of your body weight, heat, third to a half of your body heat evaporates or goes away from your head. So you've got all that heating it up, and you're breathing in and out, and that gives you some moist air to breathe while you're sleeping. And this is a very handy thing. You'll wake up under one of these type of plastic deals, and they are waterproof. Water, steam rises, right? Because it's warm. When it hits the cold up there, it condenses. It becomes ice. And after a while, it builds up, and the wind rustles it, and it snows on your sleeping bag. Comes down. And this will freeze your moisture coming, well, it'll pass through, but it'll come down, all the snow, on top of this, and this will get wet, but not you. Not your sleeping bag. You'll stay nice and dry. The one thing you don't want to do is get cold. As far as what you wear to bed is kind of up to you. I like to wear swim trunks because I got a lot of this and I sleep warm. This outfit here, this is rated down at 25 and this is at 40, and I've had this down at -5 Fahrenheit, and I've slept really well with the whole system like this. This is what I take. When you pack, this is your best friend, because you can't be pulling stuff out and kind of not being able to control where it goes. So you've got a bag for underwear, you got a bag for socks, you got a bag for your sleepwear, you got a bag for this, bag for that, and they're all labeled. So you pull out what you need and you put back and you zip it up and you stick it back in your duffel. Don't bring a pack because they're rigid and they don't fit. So use a duffel bag or a gym bag that's big, or maybe 2 gym bags, so that you've got your sleep system all together in one bag so that you only have to find one. The other thing is, if you don't sleep warm, it'll be the longest night of your life. So that is one thing that you've got to watch out for, is that you're always sleeping warm, because if you're cold, then you're up and there's no place to go and there's nothing to do and you don't want to wake up your tent mate. Nalgene bottle. This is not for peeing. What this is that you can wind up going off and getting some hot water out of the troop tank. And what you do with this is you make sure that it's half a bottle or something like that. You seal it up, you toss it down in the bottom of your sleeping bag, and then in one of these socks, maybe the sock that you took off from the day, and so it doesn't burn you, but then that's down where your feet are and you can stay nice and warm. You wear another pair if you want. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes these are they cling so tightly to your ankles that it cuts off circulation to your feet and your feet get cold. If your hands get cold, or you like to sleep where your hands are outside, somewhere in this mess I had some lightweight cotton gloves, but anyway, they're in there someplace. One thing I carry around with me is a very small flashlight. Notice it's got a tail. This way I can keep it around my head and I can tuck it inside my top layer of a t-shirt. Wear a t-shirt and swim trunks to bed. So wind up being able to pull this out, and then I know where my flashlight is. Because it gets dark around what? 4:30, 5 o'clock these days?
Yep.
It gets even, by the time it's 5 o'clock, it's dark. You're working in.
The battery better too.
Well, this takes.
The cold drains the battery.
Right.
The body heat keeps
the body heat keeps the battery warm.
Yep.
And this particular light winds up being green, which doesn't destroy your night vision, but it also runs on a AA, and it lasts for about 40 hours straight. So it's a nice LED, compact, know where it is, and I don't take it off. I just leave it on there, and it winds up being able so I can find. Ah, here they are. In the night, these become invisible. The hat becomes invisible. Get colors that you can find. White would probably be good. You can get gardening gloves now for a song because they're trying to get rid of them. They're all in clearance. Nobody's going to spend a whole lot of money on winter gear because you do it once per year, if you're lucky. If your mom lets you go. This sort of thing. If you don't have a test coming up the next week. But you can borrow somebody's sleeping bag, and you've got your summer bag And even though this is a mummy, I don't like to nest mummies because I like to move my legs a lot. And I like this rectangular bag because it gives me some motion to sleep. This bag's a little tight, but it fits, it rattles around in here. And it's nylon on flannel, so it slides. Flannel on flannel doesn't slide. You wind up getting yourself in a knot, and then you wake up from all that. So the idea is for you to get a system that you're comfortable with, that you can sleep in, and you don't want to walk out there with new stuff that you've never tried out. So you want to lay it out and sleep in. You can sleep down in the lower level of your house where it's cool. If you're cool in your system, you need to work on your system. But you also want to find out what doesn't work so that you can change out. Any questions?
How about like the sleeping pads?
Sleeping pads. I like the Z-Rest because it folds up into a block.
Yep.
You don't have to roll it up because rolling it up doesn't work.
Yep.
And it just fits there. And if you've got two of them, you can put two on top, and there's nothing. You can sleep in a sub-zero freezer, and you wouldn't be uncomfortable. It's closed self-foam, so it traps air. The whole idea is to keep dead air around you, because the difference between your warm and cuddly 98.6 and 0 degrees is your layers. And as you sweat and just perspire, just as you do, because you got water coming out of your, you put on rubber gloves, you got sweaty hands. Same idea for everything. Somewhere between your skin and the outside layer of your outer garment, it's 32 degrees. That's where it freezes. All this condensation will freeze at some level. So if you can find that layer, then when you take it off, you can shake it out and all these ice crystals will flake off. And then you put it back on, and then you try to stay chilly. Not cold, but you want to be chilled all the time. You don't want to get warm, because as soon as you get warm, you start to sweat.
I believe the term was comfortably cool.
Comfortably cool, yes.
There's something that I do that's a little bit different than what Mr. Warren said, is I take my winter jacket
Yes.
and I zip it up with the arms inside out inside,
Ah.
and then I put my sleeping bag, my toe box, inside my coat. Okay, there's a couple of things. One, it puts some heat in the coat, so if the coat's a little damp, it's going to cook the moisture out of it. Number two, it adds a little more insulation around your feet, right? Which that's typically what
That's
gets
good.
cold.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what I do. The other thing that Mr. Warren and I do together, I like what Mr. Warren does, is the blanket over your face. Cheap, thin, lightweight fleece over your head works wonders. Never ever put your face in your sleeping bag. The worst thing you can do. But the other thing I do is I take a second sleeping bag, or a second fleece. Again, light, cheap. These are like, it's like $3 at Walmart. And I'll just, when I go to get in my sleeping bag, I'll just fold this around me and then climb in my sleeping bag. Why? Well, that liner of that sleeping bag is nylon. And nylon is cool to the touch. So if you go to move during the night, it's going to be cool. You might wake you up. So I just make myself into a burrito with one of these and slide inside that nylon sleeping bag, and I'm nice and toasty. So again, sleep systems are what works for you, right? Mr. Warren's got his fine tune. Alex has his fine tune. I'm still working on mine.
My liner is flannelette.
Ah,
So that would bind me up just
Yes, it would.
Just like I was tied up in a coil of rope.
yep.
But again,
Depends on
if
what
yours
you're.
is nylon,
Yep.
then that's going to glide, just like this is going to glide in here.
Yes.
Or you're like me and you have nylon on nylon and everything's just slipping around.
Right.
all the
Which
time.
is where you could use this.
Alrighty, I think we're done here.
Any other
more
questions?
questions?
When in doubt, pack it because you can't get it at 3 in the morning.